welcome to the channel. Thank you everybody for tuning in. On today's video, I'm going to be comparing the Seestern Doxa Homage versus the Tactical Frog. Now this comparison is probably way overdue, but unfortunately sometimes I don't get to make all the videos that I need to make. So as you can see, I had all this template here all planned out, all written up, comparison done, and this is, you know, my critical comparisons, as I like to call them, where I score versus against all the little features, all the value add stuff that I see here, and try to remain as objective as possible. Now usually these videos can take up to 20-25 minutes, but for today's comparison, it won't be as lengthy as my usual critical comparisons. I will kind of get to the point and summarize here and there, you know, because I think by now most people have definitely made their mind up. I feel it's a bit of a tug of war between the purists and you know, the contemporaries, where people want this watch to homage the Doxa as close as possible, but then there's people that appreciate the differences that Tactical Frog have brought to the table. Now, let's start off with the first thing. Let's look at dimensions, and the diameter of both watches is exactly the same. It's 42.5 millimeters. The lug to lug on the Seestern is 45 millimeters, and on the Tactical Frog is coming in at 44.5. Thickness of both watches, the version 1, this is Seestern, is at around 13.7.8, so let's just call it 14 millimeters, and the Tactical Frog is a nice 13 mil. But the V2 Seestern knocked a millimeter off the height of the bezel, and that brought it in to be exactly the same with the V2 Frog. So dimensionally they're both the same, but then now let's turn our attention to the bezel. Now this is what I think just killed off the Tactical Frog, because they had two chances to fix the bezel and they failed, right? The bezel only rotates on the outside, the inner bezel does not rotate, which means if you are willing to take this watch diving, as some people stated in the comment section, you will probably be dead. Whereas a Seestern, yes, it is correct, very accurate, and the rotation of this bezel is perfect for someone like myself who prefers a much smoother motion. It is quite light, you know, by one finger you can rotate this bezel, but very accurate, very smooth, no playback, and of course it's done right with some really nice finishing, nice details, which are covered in the full review. I love how the bezel's been created, that little chamfered edge, the grip, the size, how it is much more smaller on the case, so it gives you this telescopic view, nice small flat crystal. On the Tactical Frog, the bezel does take more of the case up, you know, still same sort of finishing, very good detailing present, really love the grip, and look how flat that bezel is, you know, gives you a wider diameter, but you just can't seem to get away from the glaring mistake that they made. However, there are people out there that don't mind it, and they're willing to live with it. Personally, I would live with it as well, because, you know, I don't go diving, and I think it is pretty cool to watch the outer ring rotate, you know, and, you know, just looks quite good as well. Looking at the dial, Seestern, at least on the version 1 and some of the color options they do, they went for, I think, the first Doxa. So the dial colors were slightly more pastel and not as vibrant, whereas the Frog came out with some really, really vibrant dial colors, which I really liked. Now Seestern has since then come out with different colors, and they've got that, you know, that synchro black and white sort of dial as well, which looks good. Also give you a mop dial, so you know, they kind of ticked all the boxes there. Looking at the comments from all the various subscribers that did make a comment, a lot of people prefer these applied hour markers that Tactical Frog used. I think that's a great touch, but unfortunately the loom wasn't as good. It was quite poor considering they've got applied markers. That's something, again, they should have fixed in the version 2 if they wanted this watch to really stand out and totally crush, or have a chance at least, against the Seestern. The hands used, the length of the hour hand is great, but I find now when I compare it next to the Seestern, it's just far too thick. You also got matte finish, which is perfectly fine, but the length of the second hand is spot on. Now over to the Seestern, the finishing is a lot better. You can see this glossy paint applied. It is quite thick as well, so it makes the markers look slightly 3D. But the length on the second hand is a touch short, and on the hour hand, some say it's a little too skinny, but just a touch short as well. Also, the text present on the dial isn't that substantial, isn't that clear. You know, it's quite thin. I would have liked for it to be just slightly thicker, just to give it some presence on the dial. But I wish there could be a crossover between the two, where the length of the hands was extended on the Seestern, and I think that would look great. Now Seestern of course give you BGW9. Comparing that to the C3, this loom was much better, and it will blow the Tactical Frog loom out of the water. Now they also give you a loom date wheel, so yeah, that's quite good, right, in comparison to Tactical Frog having a no loomed date wheel. Now flat sapphire crystal, no AR coating to get in the way, whereas the Tactical Frog has gone for a low dome sapphire crystal with a slight chamfer edge. Again, my preference on that is on the Tactical Frog. Now, looking at the case, both have a very similar cushion style case. Seestern went, like I said, for that Doxa homage, meaning they tried to get as close as possible. So that's why you have this type of case, drill lugs, signed kind, etc., and that circular brushing present on the case. Highly polished sides, screw down case back. The Tactical Frog, similar case, but I do like the profile on the Tactical Frog slightly better. The case is sort of countersunk, where that really helps when you put the watch on wrist. It really seems to fit snugly. Okay, also I do prefer the side profile, looks a lot thinner. I'd say it looks quite a lot nicer actually, my opinion anyway. See, it's a bit thick there. But no drill lugs, of course. They should have put them in all honesty. Screw down case back, etc. Similar finishing to the one on the Seestern. I think Seestern has yet notably sort of finer brushing present on their case. Now, one of the standout features of Seestern, never mind this Doxa homage, is that crown. I can't believe how smooth they got the crown operation. The screwing is just perfect. No grittiness at all. It is one of the smoothest crowns that I've ever felt. Tactical Frog, it's a normal crown, right? There's nothing really noticeable about this crown. It screws in, screws out perfectly fine. There's no grittiness. It is smooth. But when you use the Seestern one, it actually makes you stop and think and notice. So the Frog went back. Version 2 made the end links female. Really good brushing. I can't say anything about the bracelet. It's a really good bracelet, right? It just isn't fully articulate. The links in between here, the center links don't move, but it doesn't really affect you while you wear it on wrist. Milled clasp, signed as well. But the bracelet is superb on the Tactical Frog. Seestern, very similar, if not exactly the same in terms of finishing, but they have fully independent links, and they brought out the female end links on the first version as well. The clasp is slightly different, sort of a Steinhardt style clasp. I'm not too fussy, but it does look a bit better than these, normal folded clasps that they use. Milled, of course. And Seestern, does have a much better, more substantial case back as well. So that is it in a nutshell. Just quick and easy review today. Like I said, I didn't want to go into too much detail, and I think the overall opinion is, my one anyway, is there should be sort of a cross hybrid between these two. I would prefer the case of the Tactical Frog and the length on the handset used, transferred onto the Seestern, but using everything else of the Seestern. I think that would just look awesome. It will be going away from the Doxa slightly with the case shape, because I think the case shape is an important characteristic, especially when it's on wrist. You do feel the watch being top heavy, whereas the Frog fits a lot closer to the wrist. It's quite snug. Objectively, it is a very tough comparison. Even in the document that I tore up earlier, the comparison figures, the numbers at the end, there was just a difference of 1 or 2 digits. So objectively, there's not a lot dividing them, right? But that error on the bezel is just so big, you can't get away from it. But yeah, this is my opinion and my overall sort of summary, comparing the Seestern versus the Tactical Frog. So that's it for this review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will link both individual videos for both watches, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.